Hello, teachers and friends. Today we want to talk about an environmental issue that happened in Indonesia, which we call the green energy paradox. To kick off, we've already known that the usage of fossil fuels on conventional vehicle has resulted in dire repercussions to our environment, such as pollution of carbon monoxide and greenhouse effect. However, vehicle companies realized that they had to transform their vehicle products to more eco-friendly fuels, which are EV, aka electrical vehicles. In making the EV, in order to store the energy in the vehicle, it requires a battery. Most of the main component of the battery nickel is the battery is nickel. Needless to say, nickel's usage will reach 37% by 2030. With the demand with the increasing demand for nickel on the world market, Indonesia plays a vital role since Indonesia is a country with the largest nickel reserve and nickel ore production in the world. However, Indonesia is still behind in becoming the biggest nickel ingot production. President Jokowi also emphasized to the public the importance of Indonesia's position in the world's needs, since Indonesia is rich in several minerals and energy such as nickel, bauxite, tin, and copper. The president wants to supply those needs, but not in the form of raw materials, but in the form of semi-finished to finished goods to add value, which can be beneficial to Indonesia's revenue and economy. As a result, the Indonesian government has begun talk, talking to the several big electrical vehicle companies such as Tesla. As you can see, these photos are the moment when the President of Indonesia, Joko Widodo, and Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, were discussing the supply chain of nickel with the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk. Furthermore, through the regulation of the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resource of the Republic of Indonesia, number 11 of 2019, the export of nickel ore to the world market was banned and should be processed to semi-finished or finished goods using specific smelters owned by big companies. For your information, there are 20 there are already 20 nickel smelters that have operated in Indonesia by 2022, and most of them are using RKAF technology, aka rotary kiln electric furnace, which mostly produce second grade nickel, which is only for stainless steel. When the global sales of electric vehicles are increasing, many foreign companies build nickel smelters with HPAL technology, as known as high pressure acid leaching, and Indonesia, the one and only HPAL factory that has operated is owned by Harita Group in Obi Island, Southern Halmahera.
It is known that Indonesia is the largest nickel production in the world, but nickel itself can cause an effect on the human. For example, an allergy that manifests as contact dermatitis, headaches, gastrointestinal and respiratory manifestation, and epigenetic alteration induced by nickel exposure that can perturb the genome. So when the waste nickel is thrown into the river, it can cause a lot of effect that can harm people and could even make them die. For example, river pollution, as you can see in the first picture on the left, during the rainy season, the color of the water become reddish and it is very concentrated because of the nickel ore that is thrown away. This effect will not only stop here, but also will damage the marine ecosystem because there are a lot of fish that are exposed to pollution, and that fish are eaten by the bigger fish, and that fish are the fish that we human usually eat. From the big from the picture, there is study that analyzed that the nickel contained in water is up to 9.43 milligrams per liter, and it is known that it's very dangerous either to human or marine. The study also checked that the fish that live in that river also have some severe damage. For instance, the cell is broken, necrosis, or the death of the body due to the lack of blood. Moreover, because there are a lot of fish that are contaminated, the fisher will also find it harder to find fish because the habitat is already broken and the fisher must go to a farther place to find fish. Therefore, throwing the waste of nickel to the river will create a lot of new problems rather than bring advantages.
So for the policy section, though there are policies that have been made by Indonesia that progressively ban export of nickel, where Indonesia completely banned nickel export on 2020. Indonesia currently doesn't have any policies that will solve the problem of nickel affecting its surroundings, such as like dumping the nickel waste to the ocean or like air pollution created by the nickel production. Indonesia instead implemented a policy that agrees to let companies that produce nickel ores to put their waste into the ocean by using the deep sea tailing method or the DST method. The difference between the current method and the DST method is that the DST method basically puts the waste into the deep sea, unlike the current method, which keeps the waste in a place that is like isolated on land. So from here, we can say that Indonesia aims to be a developing country first, rather than like solving its sustainability problem. They first wanted to strengthen their domestic processing facilities and create jobs for their people. This explained the reason for the ban on export of the nickel ores by the Indonesia.
So what do we think about the policy? Is it is quite good as long as uh it is done as the procedure, even though it may still cause the sea pollution. So the land-based tailing can contain natural minerals, and when exposed to oxygen, it can cause oxidation. Oxidation then cause the acid rock drainage, and it could lead to acid runoff, which release the heavy metals, and we know it is bad. One of the reasons why deep sea tailing is preferred is it has a low oxygen levels, which can limit the oxidation, meaning that if there is no oxidation, the things that happen when we use the land-based tailing is not going to happen. And the land-based tailing is also taking a lot of place to build, leaving human less area to live. And if there is a land-based tailing, it can disturb those who live in the vicinity. While the deep sea tailing has a lower impact to those who live nearby the sea because it has no direct effect to them. We know that fishes and phytoplankton live in the euphotic zone, uh, as seen as in the picture. Therefore, the deep sea tailing is done from more than 100 meters from the water surface levels, so it does not impact the fishes. Below this euphotic zone, the sunlight is less, meaning that the sea life is also less. And here, the waste is dumped. It then will sink down to the bottom of the sea. We think some of the species who live in this sea level can withstand the waste that is dumped because it will then sink to the end. Although we cannot say that it has no impact to them, but we think that the government has done uh, quite good. And what I can suggest is maybe they do not do the deep sea tailing too often because if there is too often, the dump will be stacked. And about the other country policies, I don't think that there is any that can really solve it. And some of them even do the deep sea mining. So that is what I think about the policy.
So our solution to this problem is called the SDD, Deep Sea Tailings Disposal. The SDD is the most cost-effective option as the end product remains after metal extraction. This is the alternative to choose instead of investors building dams to store tailings or spending more money to recycle the waste so it can be returned to the land. Currently, companies in Indonesia, namely TPB and HBI, are building smelters located in East Asia, in East Indonesia. In its presentation to government officials, TPP laid out plans to discharge 6 million tons of tailings overboard annually. HBI wants to dispose 25 million tons per year, which make it one of the largest DSTD project in the world. Under the company's plan, according to the disclosure document, the pipeline will release tailings at a depth of 150 until 250 meters below sea level, where they are then presumed to sink to the seabed for at least 1 kilometer in below sea level. The STD certainly has side effects on residents who live in the seafront area, such as fishermen. This project will have a negative impact on the lives of coastal communities, especially small-scale fishermen or traditional fishermen who are very dependent on marine and fishery resources in local waters. For example, in the 2019 Ramu Nickel project in Papua New Guinea, a Chinese-owned factory dumped 5 million tons of waste annually, which result in the beach, the waste turning the face of waters into red. Until now, still not found the solution of this problem. According to the experts, another alternative for dealing with tailings is to make a paste or thick liquid, which is heavier than the waste. So it is easier to control and prevent it from contaminating biotech life, both on land and in the sea. And that's all for our presentation. Thank you.